All right, today's video, we're gonna upgrade dust collection. Now, if you saw my video when I redid the tabletop of my workbench, I added this really awesome JESUM router lift, as well as a new DeWalt router. However, the backside of my workbench is an open cavity. And I designed it that way so I could get to my old router when I needed to adjust it, because then I had to adjust it from the bottom, and now I don't have to do that anymore. So we can go ahead and close it off. So we're gonna make a box, close the cavity, and then we're gonna run dust collection to the box. So luckily, I've got a 4-inch pipe that's already hard piped to my table saw here, and my workbench butts up against it. So we're gonna be able to go off of that trunk into the box that we're gonna create. So this is gonna be a pretty cool, fun build. It's not gonna be anything special, but it's gonna be something that I really need as I continue to improve the efficiency and the safety in my shop. Now what we have here, I've got a couple lengths of some 4-inch pipe. We've got some new blast gates. We've got a pass through with a 45 degree. This is gonna come off the trunk that I have and go up. And then as it goes up, we've got another 45 degree. We're gonna have at an angle, so it's gonna come up like this, and then over to the connector we have here. So this little port, we're gonna put on the back side. So ideally, it's gonna set something like that. We picked up some weather stripping, and this is to seal off not only the port, but also that front plate that we're gonna put on the box, which we're gonna do that last. I'm gonna get all the plumbing done first, and then we're gonna build our box or our fake door, because we do want it to come off. Every once in a while, you do have to change the speeds of the router, so we'll still need access. We may put in a viewing window. I think I've got enough plexiglass to do that, but you know what? Stop rambling. Let's get started. All right, to give a view of what we have down below, we have a trunk line that comes up from the dust collector. So the main line goes down. Now it splits here. This one goes over to the other workbench, but this comes over to the table saw. So I've got a blast gate there. And then as we go down, you'll see that it's hard piped into the table saw. So what we're looking to do right around here, that's where we're gonna put in our Y to split off our connection and go up to the table saw. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna have to put in the port. So we've got our port right here. We'll get this on so we know exactly where to go to the port or to attach the port. So we'll go down here, and here is the cavity. So we've got our DeWalt sitting in the router lift now, and then we're gonna cut a hole in here that we're gonna try to grab dust collection from. So we're gonna start here, and then we'll just work our way through the piping. All right, so we're underneath the table saw so that we can get to the back of this thing. Now I do have this switch, which I use to turn on and off the router. It's currently unplugged. So I gotta get around that. And I gotta get this thing on relatively straight. And we want the hole as close to the bottom here to collect all that dust. So we know that I've got a 1.5 fingers on that hole. So that will I'll probably get us there right there. So, mock it up right there. We get our pencil. All right, now we've got our drill. We're gonna cut into it or drill into it, and then we'll get our jigsaw and cut the rest out. Okay, that'll be good enough to get a blade in there. And then we'll also see how close we are to the bottom on this side. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to maneuver myself out of here. All right, now we went ahead and cut a 2-inch piece of PVC, a 4-inch PVC, fit on top of our adapter. So this is just a a 4-inch jointer adapter, but it's going to work great for our application. And it is a very, very snug fit. I could get it off, but it's not coming off. What I want to go ahead and now, I want to go ahead and pre-drill some holes. We'll attach the weather stripping and then we'll drill the holes again, because if we don't do that, the screws, once we put them through, are going to want to catch and turn the weather stripping. So let's go ahead and screw some of these in first. Nice, nice, nice. So we've got 8 holes. We're going to use 8 screws to hold this together. So we can go ahead and clean this off. Get all this out of the way. Let's add some weather stripping. And before we move on, we know that our 45-degree adapter is going to sit on that perfectly, and it will create a really good fiction fit, because if you've seen my dust collection, I don't have anything glued down right now. Everything is friction fit, and it works fantastic, even all the way up to the Cyclone. So let's go ahead and get this on, and then we can work on plumbing. All right, we have it on. And now for the fun plumbing part. All right, and now you can see we've got the blast gate for the router. We've got the blast gate for the table saw. So typically, the blast gate for the table saw will always be open, because that's the tool I use the most. But if I'm over here at the router, close table saw, open the router, we're good to go. So in order to accomplish this, I had to use 2 45s. We had to kind of go out, and then down. And then we've got a pass through with a 45-degree, and then we just cut a little bit of the pipe from the table saw. So no real changes there, but it is pretty rock solid. We already did a test with it, and we're getting a lot of suction at the port, so that's fantastic. Now we can move over to the actual cavity we have. So we've got this big opening here that houses the router, and typically I put a few things in here for storage. However, it's probably not the best of how much dust it gets. So the goal is we're going to build kind of a blocker around all 4 corners so that our fake door can kind of sit on. We'll be able to pull it back, and then we'll put weather stripping on it, because once the dust collector turns on, there's going to be so much suction between the backer and the board, especially with that weather stripping, it's going to hold it tight. So I'm not really worried about it being flimsy by any means. We're down at our cavity, and we need to figure out what we're going to do. And I really want that jaw to be inset quite a bit. So I think we're just going to take 2x4s, and that's going to give us consistent depth. We're going to glue it. We're going to go ahead and we'll clamp it into place, and that way I can come back later. I've got the drawers out so I can drill in from the sides, and then on the top, I'll just be able to drill up into the top because I've got a kind of a beefy layer there. So we're going to go ahead and get this glued up. We'll get this clamped. We can come back later and screw it together. All right, and now we start getting fancy with our build. We've got our door cut, and we went ahead and cut a piece of Formica. So I had some Formica left over from the tabletop, and I love the way it looks. So I figured how cool would it be to have a black face for our trap door, And then also, we've got an outline here. This is going to be for our viewing window. So we cut a piece of acrylic, so we're going to add that on later. But for now, let's get this Formica on. We're going to be using this contact cement, and contact cement is no joke. So I've got the garage door open. I've got a large exhaust fan. Luckily, it's a small area. It won't take very long. But what we're going to do, we're going to roll it on the Formica. We're going to roll it on the door, the plywood, and we're going to let that sit probably about 5 minutes. We're going to come check, and once it feels like it's almost dry, we're going to set it on, and then we're going to roll it into place. So let's go. All right, now we waited a little over 5 minutes. I can touch it and it feels dry. So now we're gonna go ahead and put this on. Now once we put this on, it's going to be attached. So we're gonna have to work pretty quick. You're not gonna have time to really move it around. As shown here. Oh well. There you go. All right, we have a permanent bond. So we're gonna go ahead and let this adhere for a good 20, 30 minutes. I think it's a perfect time to take some lunch. We'll come back, we'll cut the hole out for our viewing window. We'll attach the acrylic, we'll attach some handles, we'll attach the weather stripping, and we're done. We can test it out, show it off. Let's go. All right, now we're ready to attach our viewing window to our door. So we've got our piece of acrylic, we've got our door ready, and then we've got some black silicone that I had left over from another project. All right, now we've got about 20 pounds weighing this down. We're gonna give this thing a good hour at least before we come back to it to attach our handles for it and then the weather stripping. And then we'll be done. So just hang tight. Okay, now that we've got our plexiglass installed, we can go and attach our pulls. Now I've got these pulls that I've had for quite a bit of time. I had them on another shop furniture. We're gonna go ahead and cut our drill holes here, and I've got it marked center on both sides. All right, we got the pulls installed. Now we can go ahead and turn it upside down. Let's install the weather stripping, and then we are done. All right, you'll see a slight update here. I had to add 6 bolts because once I hooked up the dust collector and turned it on, the plexiglass started separating. So we've got it bolted down, and then we tried it again and I could hear some air escaping. So we've got some additional silicone around the edges on the outside and not just the connection. So we're gonna let that dry for a couple hours before we test it again. And then I went ahead and added some CA glue to the weather stripping because the adhesive on it just wouldn't stick into this plywood. So that should be firm, and there was no leaks around those corners. So now we let this thing dry, and I can show you this thing in action, and it sucks, and it's awesome. All right, now to put this baby to test. We're gonna put this in a real world application where we need to cut something where the dust is usually trapped underneath the product, i.e. it won't get sucked up in here. So we've got kind of our gate closed here, and we're gonna put a keyhole in. And if you guys have ever used keyholes, you know, the bit goes in and it cuts through the wood this way. Well, there's no room for that dust to escape. It can't go this way because it's not open, and it kind of stays in there. Now, I've got a pretty big throat on the router lift, which I wouldn't usually do. However, we know this is a straight cut. I'm not too worried about that, about it moving or going into it. So we'll see how much dust is collected now that we got it piped. Okay, did you guys hear that wind down? That was really cool. You've got the router spinning down and the last amount of air going through, and it just made this really cool whoosh sound. But look at that. Look at this. There is no dust on this plate. I've never made this cut without either A, getting stuck because the sawdust gets compacted, or B, all over the place. Look, this is as clean as as before we did the cut. This is fantastic. Okay, one thing that I thought was really interesting. So if you guys watched my video when I put the tabletop together and added the Jessom router lift, we knew I wasn't going to be able to cut it perfect because I didn't have a jig. Well, the air is sucking through the tiny gap. So when I moved the piece of wood right here, it kind of got stuck a little bit. I was like, wait a minute, there's no holes here. But now it was sucking through it here. That is awesome. I don't care who you are. That is so freaking cool. I'm very happy with this. All right, that concludes today's video. An upgrade to the safety and the efficiency of the router table with the dust collection extension. We've got this awesome take-off door with the viewing window. However, you can't take it off when the dust collector's on, which is super rad. We've got our dust ports within reach, right where the switch is to turn the router on. We did the test. And I don't know if I've ever been so amazed by the results of a test like that. Usually it's kind of like, oh, that works pretty good. No, that was really, really awesome. To do 2 keyhole cuts with 0 dust on the plate, I can't tell you how happy I am. But either way, thanks for joining today. Hopefully you guys like this type of content. Hopefully you like and subscribe. It's free. We're going to be doing tons of shop upgrades throughout the next year. Until next time, we'll see you. Oh, God. Pardon me. Ow. Ow.